This week on The Record, Congress takes on abortion politics, why Senate Republicans blocked a proposal to protect access to birth control pills. Senator Josh Hawley's Democratic challenger Lucas Kunce is on the record. But first tonight, the trials of Donald Trump. His attorney, Will Scharf, is running to be your attorney as Missouri's Attorney General in the Republican primary. Scharf breaks down Trump's felony convictions, previews possible prison sentencing, and makes his case to become Missouri's next top lawyer. It's all coming up right now. Welcome to The Record. I'm Mark Maxwell. A New York court will sentence Donald Trump in 1 month. The former president's legal team will file immediately to appeal those 34 felony convictions, and just 4 days later, the GOP will officially nominate its standard bearer at the Republican National Convention. One of former President Trump's criminal defense attorneys, Will Scharf, is now on the record. It's good to have you with us.
Great to be with you, Mark.
Our viewers have also seen you on a number of national programs argue prosecutors and perhaps even Judge Merchan in this New York case were politically biased against Donald Trump. I'll just concede the point. Prosecutors are ambitious people, maybe even judges. We'll get into that in a moment. So are defense attorneys. Prosecutors want to convict a case. They want to secure a conviction. You are highly motivated to defend your client, but you both have to go through the same strict set of procedures and processes to show evidence, to seat a jury, to persuade a jury. So at the end of the day, what does politics have to do with it?
Well, we think that Judge Merchan was irretrievably biased, and we think we had very strong grounds to move for him to recuse off of this case. I think his failure to recuse was a real error on his part. I believe it was reversible error. That's an issue we're going to challenge before the appellate courts as well. When you have a sitting judge who contributed to the political opponent of the defendant he's sitting in judgment over, and whose daughter is one of the leading Democrat fundraisers in the country, who stands to make potentially millions of dollars off of a conviction, the legal standard comes from the Supreme Court's case Caperton v. Massey, which says that even an appearance of impropriety, given sufficiently extreme facts, can justify recusal for due process purposes. And we think that standard was met in this case.
I don't fault anyone for the behavior or ideas of their parents or their kids. That doesn't factor in for me at all.
Sure.
But I'll grant you this. The Ethical Code of Conduct for federal judges does say a judge should refrain from political activity, and such behavior, quote, may detract from the dignity of the judge's office. He gave $15 to Joe Biden's campaign. To what degree does that make him a political figure?
Well, I think the fact that he made that political contribution, presumably knowing that he wasn't allowed to make such contributions, speaks volumes about his political motivations in this case. And when you look at the actual trial record, it's just replete with reversible error, decisions that he made that clearly violated President Trump's constitutional rights. And we look forward to getting this case into the appellate courts to vindicate President Trump's rights.
You don't dispute that he was assigned randomly to the case?
I think it's deeply suspicious that a large number of political cases seem to get screened to this particular judge. There's another Trump Organization case that was assigned to Judge Merchan. Similarly, Steve Bannon's case was assigned to Judge Merchan. I think there's something going on in the New York clerk's office, the same way that the Ninth Circuit used to screen basically every case with a political valence to Stephen Reinhart, who was a known liberal judge on that circuit. I think it's actually deeply suspicious, the assignment in this particular case.
You have suspicions, no evidence yet at this point that there's anything nefarious going on.
I don't know what happened in the New York clerk's office, but I do find it suspicious that all of these cases seem to end up in front of this one judge who is deeply connected to the Democrat Party and its operatives.
Okay, so there's the politics, there's the people, and that's interesting. It's interesting to talk about. But then there's the behavior of Mr. Trump himself, and I think we should focus on that. It would seem that Mr. Trump's own actions incriminated him. I understand he denies any affair with Stormy Daniels or with Karen McDougal. Then why did he make the payments?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to note that this is a case about business records. Signing an NDA is not a crime. Making payments in furtherance of an NDA is not a crime. This is about business records, entries made in President Trump's personal ledger in 2017 that reflected payments made to President Trump's attorney, Michael Cohen, as legal payments. Mm-hmm. Now, there was very compelling testimony at trial from two Trump Organization officials, Deb Tarasoff and Jeff McConney, and they basically testified that they made these entries the way that they did, because that's how they had recorded every payment made to a lawyer for over 30 years. On that ground alone, I think the evidence didn't support a charge of business records fraud, and everything else after that's really window dressing.
You've referred to this before as a zombie trial. trial, others have too, because it's connected to other elements, other motives, the motive behind the payment. And David Pecker considers Mr. Trump a close friend, also testified in court under oath that he made those payments, Mr. Trump made those payments to influence the election. The jury ultimately agreed to that he made those payments to influence the election. Is that why Donald Trump made those payments?
Well, I think, first of all, the reason we call it a zombie case is that this case had sat in the New York DA's office for years. This is conduct that happened almost a decade ago. This case, successive prosecutors, both in the New York DA's office, federal prosecutors, the FEC, had all declined to take action.
And without the underlying campaign influence attempt, it wouldn't have been a felony, it would have stayed a misdemeanor. I understand all that.
But the reason that we call it a zombie case is important here, Mark, and it speaks to the political motivations of the entire prosecution. That Joe Biden gives a speech in November of 2022 saying that he's going to use legal means to stop President Trump from getting back into the White House. And suddenly across the country, in New York, in Georgia, with the appointment of Jack Smith as special counsel at the federal level, you get this flurry of activity in cases that were long since considered dead, including this New York case, suddenly get revived. When we talk about political motivations, that's really what we're talking about here.
I appreciate all that timeline you laid out for me. None of it answers the question, did he make the payments to influence the 2016 presidential election?
I think that's absolutely absurd. I think he made payments to his lawyer, Michael Cohen. I think the trial record bears this out. He made payments to his lawyer, Michael Cohen, as part of a retainer agreement that Michael Cohen performed on. He was actively performing legal work for President Trump throughout 2017.
So prosecutor Joshua Steinglass asked David Pecker, was your principal purpose in entering into the agreement with Karen McDougal to suppress her story so as to prevent it from influencing the election? David Pecker says, yes, it was. That was the record.
President Trump wasn't indicted or tried for anything related to the payments to Karen McDougal. This is solely Stormy Daniels, and the only person's word we have speaking to the motivation of those payments was Michael Cohen, a known perjurer and liar, who I think was eviscerated on cross-examination at trial and who has no credibility whatsoever.
Let's look then at the actual business records. That's the falsification, the entry thereof. If you're Michael Cohen, 2016, 2017, Donald Trump is your client. You've got this order to make the payment to go through with it. Are you advising him to enter that as a legal expense or a campaign expense?
The only person who has indicated in any way, shape, or form that President Trump knew that Michael Cohen was making these payments, that President Trump had anything to do with these payments, is Michael Cohen.
Answer the question, though. Would you have advised him to make it a legal expense or a campaign expense in those records at the time?
President Trump had nothing to do with the entry of those records.
If you're Michael Cohen, how would you have advised him to?
Well, but Michael Cohen had nothing to do with the creation of these records. These were records being created in Trump Tower while President Trump was off running the country in the White House. So I fight the premise of the question, Mark.
Well, I sense that, but because making it a campaign expense would mean you'd have to report it to the public, and that seems to defeat the whole purpose of...
But hold on, President Trump is entitled under federal election law to contribute an unlimited amount of money to his own campaign. So again, we're talking about...
But the disclosure would have
we're talking
been
about,
required as well.
That's a nothing, and we had a former FEC commissioner, one of these seminal experts on election law in the country, Brad Smith, ready to testify, and Judge Merchan essentially refused to allow him to testify as to the scope of federal election law and its applicability in this case.
You've got an appeal coming up. I can't wait to cover that and learn more about it, but let's get more with you on your race for Attorney General just after this break. Welcome back. We're still here with Will Scharf. He's running for Attorney General as a Republican. I want to ask you about the Attorney General's tweet about President Trump. Andrew Bailey says, quote, "I will use every legal tool available to ensure Missourians are not deprived of their right to vote for a presidential candidate." In Vermont, the Republican Party says you can't be a felon and be nominated for the party's nomination there. Is there any ballot access challenge that arises because of this felony conviction?
I think the RNC has an outstanding team of lawyers that's ready to challenge exactly these sorts of issues and is going to make sure that the American people have the ability to choose a candidate of their choice at the ballot next November.
Okay. So the short answer is you don't think that's going to be an issue. Andrew Bailey is representing 3 state senators right now in Missouri who incorrectly tweeted images of this man at a Chiefs parade, the Super Bowl parade, and they falsely called him an illegal migrant, or they wrongly linked him to that mass shooting that happened there. I've never seen this before. The Attorney General is using state power, state resources to defend these 3 from a private defamation suit. They could use their political contributions and their political fund to defend themselves. Would you use state power in that fashion?
I think Governor Parsons spoke very interestingly on this issue, where he basically said that the state shouldn't be on the hook for these senators' private statements. When you look at the actual law around this sort of issue, the Supreme Court gave guidance on this in a case relating to Facebook posts just last year. And you have to look at the avenue through which the statements were made, whether that's official conduct versus private conduct. Here, I think there's a pretty strong case that it was private conduct. I think what we've seen from the Attorney General's office over and over and over again now is this mad rush to insert himself, to insert the office into any issue with publicity.
Judges have even, Republican-appointed judges have even called him out for overreaching his authority in some other cases. I want to ask you about a separate case, though, in our limited time here. Andrew Bailey was in federal court Monday to block President Biden's second round of student loan debt forgiveness. The judge asked, what took so long to file this? Bailey's lawyers said they raced to get it into court, and they said they're not trying to block any of the forgiveness up until now. Would you have done anything differently in this case?
I think I'm not going to comment on ongoing litigation. I do think it's notable, though, that the Missouri Attorney General's office, which under Eric Schmidt was really the national leader in these student loan cases, was second to file, that Kansas led a multi-state effort prior to Missouri filing this lawsuit, which is really sort of a copycat type lawsuit.
In the last 10 seconds we have, is there any reason for a Democrat to vote for you?
I would like all Missourians to vote for me.
But what reason do they have to do it?
I think I am not bought and paid for by Jefferson City special interests. I think when you look at the political corruption in Jefferson City, when you look at the level of special interest and lobbyist capture in that city, all Missourians have a real interest in breaking that control and bringing power back to the people of Missouri.
I wish we had more time. Will Scharf, thank you so much.
Great to be with you, Mark.
A push to protect birth control pills failed in the U.S. Senate this week. Top Republicans who blocked it called it a show vote. Senator Josh Hawley voted against the Right to Contraception Act. He told NBC News the Democratic proposal, quote, would also make the abortion drug mifepristone, not contraception, but mifepristone, available in all 50 states, no matter what the state law is. And that would override my state's law, Missouri's law. It would also take it out of the hands of voters, he said. That's an abortion issue. That's not a contraception issue. The man challenging Hawley this November slammed him for opposing the bill, and he joins us now. Joining us now from the NBC studios in Kansas City, Democrat Lucas Kunce is on the record. It's good to have you back with us. It's been some time. I take it from your reaction, you would have voted for this Right to Contraception Act. Do you agree it would also protect these mail-order abortion pills?
No, I mean, the Act talks about drugs that prevent abortion. What Missourians are tired of is controlling politicians trying to take over their lives and give them no choice in anything. And so, as a U.S. Senator, I believe my job is to represent people, give them the opportunity and the freedom to make their own decisions. And frankly, having access to contraceptives is one of the most important things that people need to have when they're making a decision on how to build a family and when to build it. So I absolutely would have voted yes for this. And I think that, we need to go back and make sure that everyone has access to contraception.
To be clear, the Supreme Court is currently looking at mifepristone and whether or not it should be allowed, or there's a big case there. People are watching that closely. Doctors only prescribe mifepristone, and I think this is an important piece of context. They only prescribe it to women in that first 10 weeks of pregnancy, which is well within the window of time. Former President Trump says abortion should be legal. What do you make of that distinction?
Well, I think when Josh Hawley was talking about mifepristone related to this contraceptive bill, it's because, mifepristone is an issue for him and his family. His family business is about controlling people. His wife, Erin, just argued in the Supreme Court with him sitting right there behind her that mifepristone should be banned nationwide. And he used our U.S. Senate office, the Missouri U.S. Senate office, to sign on to an amicus brief supporting his wife's case. And so, for me, this is just an issue of a family business where people are out to control us and they don't care about our ability to make our own decisions and investing in our communities. And so, for me, I don't want to confuse anything here, right? This man is on a mission to ban contraceptives and to make it so that people do not have access to reproductive health care. I mean, he wrote an article in 2013 where he said that anything that prevents the implantation of a fertilized egg is abortion. That's it, period. That's where he wants to stop. And I mean, if no one believes me, it's right here, right? The state passed a law banning or saying that employers wouldn't have to provide contraceptives to people, and Josh Hawley supported that law.
I believe that may have been in relation to his legal arguments to the Hobby Lobby case. People can research that. It may have been the case. I want to ask you, okay, so if you're
That's right. He's bragging about the Hobby Lobby case, right? It's his thing.
Right. Okay, so let's draw this distinction between birth control, which is contraceptive preventative, and the mifepristone after the fact. Are you aware of any women in Missouri who want access to birth control pills and cannot get them?
Well, first I want to say Josh Hawley, he does not draw a distinction here, right? There's no distinction for him. For him, abortion is anything that prevents the implantation of a fertilized egg. Period. So that's morning after pill, that's contraception, that's quite a few things. And yes, I am familiar with someone who's had a problem with this exact same thing based on Josh Hawley's work and the Hobby Lobby case. So a person came up to me at an event and they told me about how they were tired of hormonal birth control. It was giving all sorts of side effects. And they went to their doctor and said, is there anything you can do for me so that I don't have to deal with these same side effects? And her doctor said, yes, in fact, we can give you an IUD. You're a perfect candidate for it. She said, great, that's what I want. She went back in a week later, and the doctor came out to her, and he said, you know, I want to be clear with you. You can still get an IUD. You're a great candidate, and it'll do everything you want. However, we found out that your insurance doesn't cover it because your employer believes that that's abortion. And so, like, again, right here, we're talking about people's extreme beliefs taking away the rights of Missourians to plan their families and have the freedom to make their own decisions. It is actually happening. It's happening every single day in this state. And like, I'm telling you, man, getting an IUD is not cheap. It's like $1,000. And for someone who works just a normal job in Missouri, that's a huge blow to them and their family.
This is our first time talking to you since Hamas launched its attack on Israel and the IDF retaliated. At this stage in the conflict, are you comfortable sending American weapons for Israel to drop in Gaza?
What I'm saying right now is we need to get to a ceasefire and we need to make sure that the hostages are returned. And we need to use, you know, America's position in the world to make sure that both of those things happen. And they need to go hand in hand.
That sounds like a potential yes. President Biden has also said the word ceasefire in recent weeks, but he's also still authorizing the sale and transfer of these American weapons to Israel.
Look, I'll say it right now, like what's happening I'm a Marine, I deployed to Iraq, I deployed to Afghanistan twice. Like what we're seeing right now is just a mass killing of a bunch of people, right? And I can tell you right now from a strategic and tactical point of view, that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And so what we need to do is we need to get, again, use American leverage, use our position in the world, use our ability to use diplomacy to get out there, get a ceasefire, which of course would include the return of the hostages.
Quickly, before we let you go, President Biden is now using executive authority at the border, the very same authority Donald Trump used for his Muslim ban, and the same authority President Biden rescinded as soon as he entered the Oval Office. Did President Biden get immigration policy wrong?
There's a wreck at the border right now. We need to do something. There have been bills put out that folks like Josh Hawley refuse to sign on to that would actually fund real security at the border. And so for me, it's like we got to fund security at the border. We got to reduce that flow. We got to make sure that asylum isn't abused, and we got to stop catch and release programs.
Congress can pass any law it wants. The president still ultimately has to enact it. Do you trust President Biden to secure the border?
I say Congress needs to pass the law and make it happen. And if any president refuses to do that and refuses to secure the border, then they're going to need to take further action.
All right, Lucas Kunz joining us from Kansas City. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Mark.
That full extended interview is up on KSDK.com. You can also send us a tip or a note if you text RECORD to 314-425-5355. When we come back, we check the record. Welcome back. We told you last week we'd have news for you in the race for Congress. St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell is challenging incumbent Congresswoman Cori Bush in one of the most closely watched Democratic primary races in the nation. First, let's check the record. Here's what Cori Bush promised her supporters when she launched her campaign for re-election 5 months ago.
I'm very meticulous because I'm always trying to get a message across. I don't want to waste a moment. If I got a mic, if I have a TV camera, if I'm on the radio, I don't want to waste a minute because there's something somebody needs, and so it's something that needs to be said.
We offered a broad platform. KSDK, the local PBS station, the St. Louis American, all offered that chance for a debate. Unfortunately, the Congresswoman has declined our invitation to join our airwaves and face the voters with these important questions. The NAACP was prepared to sponsor this event. Wesley Bell, he agreed to appear. She did not. Her campaign gave us no explanation for their rationale. We also checked the record and found no example of her ever debating anyone in any of her past 3 campaigns for Congress. So we regret to inform you a debate in this very important race will not happen, not on our airwaves, though we did make every attempt to try and bring that discussion to you. Wesley Bell's campaign spokeswoman, Jordan Sanders, says it's disappointing and concerning that Congresswoman Bush refuses to debate and talk about her record, but not a surprise. Given the criminal investigations that surround her, St. Louis deserves a member of Congress that will focus on delivering for our region. We'll continue to cover that race, but that does it for us for now. We'll see you at the same time next Sunday. Until then, we're off the record.